Are you looking to stay informed about what's going on in Madison without the media spin? Well, here's the latest news from the Wisconsin Assembly Chambers brought right into your home, directly from the office of your representative, who truly values his constituents' feedback and is always working hard on the issues that matter to you. Welcome to the Ramthun Report.
Hello, fellow patriots. Welcome to our 38th episode, and this episode shows that our efforts have been on point. This week's hot topics include a quick update on the status of the resolution to reclaim Wisconsin's electors, a powerful segment on this week's Campaign and Elections Committee hearing, which clearly reveals how our office has already got the solutions to the problems based on our resolution. And lastly, we end with some great legislation we've got on deck, like dissolving the WEC and a right to try bill. So here's Representative Ramthun to reassure you that despite what you might have heard, this effort is still very much alive and well.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Ramthun Report number 38. 38 is great. I got to tell you right off the bat, we had a little bit of a bumpy road the past week and a half. We've had not only the Thanksgiving holiday and its residuals, but we had some illness in the office. So we had to take a break. We had to cut back a little bit and reframe our go-forward plan, and we're back on track. So here we are, 38 is great. I'd like to start out today by touching briefly on the action of the reclaiming of the 10 electoral ballot resolution that was sent out to the entire legislative body. As you recall, the majority leader for the Assembly basically put up a hand and said, don't worry about it, anybody, it's not going anywhere. That type of obstruction is what we've become used to around here in trying to do the right thing, so I guess I'm not too surprised. But I will tell you that initiatives and efforts continue to acquire legal opinion from across the country from prominent high-level attorneys who know the Constitution. And my dilemma is when you make a connection with these people and you ask them basically this way, here's what we're saying to them. Your legal opinions could be the saving grace that enables a historical action to force the conversation of election integrity to be addressed not only in Wisconsin but the entire nation. That's a very true and accurate statement, and when I reach out to these individuals, they're very receptive to know, and they understand that the question on the table about the election of 2020 is national. It's a national issue from the 2020 election, and they're willing to do the best they can to help make a difference. So they also have their real legal lives to attend to. So I'm in a position where I have to be careful when I've got well-qualified and expensive help that's working with me pro bono to not be too annoying. It's very hard for me to do, but I'm doing the best I can. So anyway, that said, the resolution, in my humble opinion, to everyone and anyone who watches this video today, is alive and well. I am optimistic beyond measure that we will have a senator or more than one senator very, very soon. And I think the onus is on me to give them a little bit more reason why. Not so much for cause, but for a feeling of assurance that that is actually the right thing that they would need to do. What I mean by that is the attorney leverage from the constitutional national support that I'm receiving will, I believe, without question, give the kind of support to ensure within themselves that joining the push to have this resolution addressed in the legislature is truly the right thing to do, of, by, and for the people. So stay tuned for coming attractions on that. I look to have an update, a very positive and optimistic update, as early as next week on go-forward plans for the resolution to reclaim our 10 electoral ballots in the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
We are excited to get some more feedback from constitutional attorneys that are outside of the Madison bubble, and look forward to presenting that information to you very soon. Now let's give you a breakdown on what has happened in the Campaigns and Elections Committee hearing this week, and how our office is already ahead of the curve on most of these issues.
And I'm back. Segment 2 of today's Ramthun Report. 38 is great. The merit of the resolution to ask to decertify our election and reclaim our 10 electoral ballots was qualified this week more than ever before with the Campaign and Elections Committee hearing. Actually, they had two. They initiated one from 1 o'clock until 2:20, and then they adjourned and reconvened immediately to go into the second segment. They had to do it that way for posting reasons. However, in that process of 2.5 hours of presentation, we had 3 individuals come on behalf of the Campaign and Elections Committee, chaired by my good friend Janelle Branchen, who's doing a great job to surgically analyze and produce information. It's coming out now, ladies and gentlemen. I always knew it would. It's a little slow for me, but when you have obstruction in the way and indifference that slows things down, it does take a little bit more time than we'd like. But we do have 3 individuals. I'd like to introduce or mention Jeff O'Donnell first. He's the first speaker that they had. He's a software engineer. He's an electronics data expert. And in his presentation, Mr. O'Donnell said this.
An analysis of the Wisconsin voter file revealed significant red flags in the data. The file contains slightly over 7 million separate voter records. According to World Population Review, the population of Wisconsin is currently approximately a little more than 5.8 million. Based on those numbers, it seems probable that the voters are not ever actually removed from this database, but rather there's a status field that is used to set them to inactive. The Wisconsin Election Commission's site lists the number of age Wisconsin citizens at the time of the 2020 election as a little over 4.5 million. Of those, in the voter file, a little over 3.5 million are listed as active voters. And just for information, that means that approximately 60% of Wisconsin citizens are registered as active voters. In the 2020 election, according to the voter file, slightly over 1.9 million Wisconsin citizens voted absentee. Slightly over 1.3 million voted at the polls. A total of a little over 3.3 million voted. Actually, I'll give that number. That's 3,308,634. If you take that and you divide that into the number of age voters in Wisconsin, that calculates to a turnout of 72.9%, which is also a number which has been published. I find it interesting that if you just do the percent of active voters who cast a vote, that's actually 93.7% of all active voters.
Wasn't that something? Did you catch some of the things he was talking about, ladies and gentlemen? For those who are looking for more information to prove why we need a resolution to decertify, well, you just got a nice earful there. Our resolution was qualified with the deceased voter bill that we have out. It is an AB 761 item that talked about the importance of removing that extraneous data from that data file. Don't forget now, the numbers that we have within this WSVP voter database don't jive. And he qualified it again, talked at the 7.1 million. There's 5.8, 5.9 million people in the state alone. So we have more names in this file than exist in the state. Of the 7.1, about 4.5, actually not from the 7.1, from the 5.8 million people that live in the state, 4.5 million are old enough to vote, and of the 4.5, 3.5 are registered to vote. And of the 3.5 who registered to vote in the election of 2020, we had a 93% turnout. That doesn't work. It doesn't jive. The numbers don't connect, and his presentation was very strong. He went on to say, and he also revealed this.
Total of people who were both active and inactive in that file, the number is more than 500,000. That is definitely an anomaly. It doesn't look right, and as such, it needs to be explained, in my opinion. Parenthetically, the single date that most people have ever been registered, most Wisconsinites have been registered that are still active, was on November 3rd, 2020. There are 205,355 active voters who have the registration, the application date of November 3rd, 2020. And it also, the issue of the indefinitely confined, many of those, the application dates do not jibe with other numbers that we have. So according to the report, in 2020, 957,977 Wisconsinite registered to be a new voter. Of that, 45,665 registered with driver's license information that did not match DMV records. It's about 4.8%. Moving on, about 10% of the total voter roll in the file are listed as registering in the 6 months prior to and including November 3rd, 2020. That's also 22% of all active voters in the rolls registered in that 6-month period up to November 3rd, 2020. It is interesting that 31,872 voters whose application happened in that 6-month window before November 3rd are now in the current file listed as inactive. That number seems to be excessive, and I think it needs to be explained and investigated. Wisconsin Public Radio reported on August 4th, 2021 that the WEC had removed 174,000 and change voters from the rolls because they'd not voted in 4 years, and another 31,800 who were on a 2019 voter list that was the subject of the lawsuit. None of those 31,872 would be in either of those classes since their application date was in the 6 months prior to the November 2020 election. Perhaps partially because of this, Wisconsin lists 42,000 voters who are currently inactive in the August 2021 file, who nevertheless are indicated that they voted in the 2020 election. This is a red flag because there would be few reasons to inactivate a voter from the rolls that had voted just 10 months earlier.
Yes, he brought up the ineligible voter element, which is another problem within this Wisconsin elections database. And it just so happens that the Ramthun office has, prior to this information coming out, submitted for co-sponsorship an eligible voter bill, LRB number 5227/P1. And it speaks specifically at removing ineligible voters from the official voter registration list. So this office is proactive and engaged and focused and accurate in its necessity to prove why we asked the question for decertifying our election. This is another reason that was used to create more than questionable outcomes. After that, we had Dr. Douglas Frank come on. And I met the gentleman one time back when I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He was out there part of the symposium. Incredibly intelligent gentleman, very well versed, very well experienced nationally. He's a data analyst and he's involved in the analysis of information in 30 states right now, up to and including Wisconsin. And he brought out this information.
So here's a graph. This is a graph where I downloaded these data from your website. And it's the WEC website. These are available to the public. I'm not paying the $12,500 to download your registration database. This is me just going to your website and downloading all of your voter registration totals for the last 12 years. And this is what it looks like. It's from November 2009 to December of 2021. And you notice what you've got. Here, I'm going to get my pointer working. Laser pointer. You notice, for example, this top county. This is just simply the number of registrants, and this top county is Milwaukee County, for example. So it's about 500,000 registrants, and you can see that over time that the number of registrants fluctuates. And you can see that it fluctuates relative to the elections. So each of these dashed lines are the presidential election years. So, for example, this was November 2020, and this is the 28. Actually, not presidential. This is every 2 years. So this would be the 18 election, the 2016 election, etc. The point is, you notice that there's a fluctuation. Before the election, the rolls increase, and then afterwards there's a purging, and then before the election they increase again, then purging. And you can notice that it's in all the counties. So here I'm showing you all 69 counties, and you notice that you've got some big counties and small counties. It's hard to see them, but I'll blow those up for you later so you can look at them. The point to notice is that there's a pattern. The pattern is before the elections the rolls are inflated, and then after the election the rolls are purged. What I did in this graph to help you, give you a frame of reference, is I'm showing you all Wisconsin registrants. These are the active ones, the red curve, and then the blue curve is the 18 and older population. So these would be who would be eligible to be registered to vote. And you can notice that every time that one of these red peaks surges, it exactly matches that line. So it's as though you're inflating the rolls every time up to a certain percentage. It's not equal to that, it's a proportion, but you can see that I've got them on two different scales. I just wanted you to see that it's tracking really well. It inflates to a certain percentage every time. That's suspicious. I would expect it to be more random, based upon people's behaviors, typically not random. Now there's something important to notice on this graph, and that's that in November of late in 2017 and early in May and 2018, about 580,000 people were removed from your rolls. You can see that big drop right there. You need to think about that for a minute. That means 1 in 6 of people on your rolls were removed. And then what I've done is to help you see the shape of the change, I've normalized each one. I've made the maximum of each county equal 100%. And I've shown you just the 3 largest counties so that you can see how this works. I want you to have a feeling for how much your rolls, your registration rolls, are changing. So for example, here is Milwaukee County losing 1 in 4 of its voters over a course of a year. 1 in 4 of their voters are removed from the rolls. That's a huge number to change. You didn't lose 25% of your people. You lost 25% of your active voters within a period of a year. And then, notice what happened between then, late in 2016 and present, is you added them all back again. So you lost 1/4 of them and you added them all back again. You didn't grow in population that much. Something else is going on. You know that's not just a normal fluctuation of your population. This is somebody making choices, and they may be good choices. You might be saying, look, we need to get rid of all these old voters who aren't on our rolls anymore. Some of that may be normal. But the problem is once you've removed them all, how come they're all coming back again? That's a problem. And this is a busy graph. But it's important that you see that all of your counties are following that pattern. So in other words, if I make all of your counties have their peak be 100%, you can see that they all follow this same pattern. And what's really suspicious is that even the little bumps along the way in between the major corrections all track each other. So that suggests, it's an obvious conclusion, that all the registration rolls are centrally controlled because they're all behaving the same. That's interesting to note. They follow the same pattern. So you know that it's not the individual counties doing the work individually, because they would be varying independently. You know that it's being centrally controlled. Even the small counties follow those patterns.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the log file bill or the log file information he talked about is represented in the log file bill that we have introduced for co-sponsorship before yesterday. It's LRB 5228/P1. Relating to maintaining electronic voting system or automatic tabulating equipment data for 22 months after an election. This also includes machine log file data, so anything and all things associated to the process of our elections, it has to be contained and retained for 22 months. Right now, the Wisconsin Election Commission, specifically Megan Wolf, its administrator, didn't seem to subjectively think through interpretation that that was necessary. So we have to craft a bill to make sure she understands that it's required going forward, or whoever the next administrator is. After that point, we had Eric Cardall come in. Eric is an attorney for the Thomas More Society, and I've met Eric, I think, at least once, if not twice before. I know he was at the March 10th Campaign and Elections Committee where he spoke about the Brown County election irregularities and issues, and actually that was the place where I was really very, very concerned about our elections process. So Mr. Cardall went on to say this.
So let's go to the Wisconsin election bribery statute. Now, a lot of states just have a generally applicable bribery statute, but your predecessors in the legislature say, oh, we got to have something special that specifically applies to election officials and to the general public. So we look at Wisconsin Statute 12.11, and there's a definition of anything of value. So it includes any amount of money or any object which has utility independent of any political message it contains, and the value of which exceeds $1. So when something isn't clear, and you're talking about a statute, it's up to the legislature to make it clear, right? We shouldn't just rely on courts to make it clear or enforcing bodies. And I'll discuss that later with respect to the Wisconsin Election Commission response. All right. Legal analysis. This is what you're all waiting for as I plow through that stuff. So the three questions regarding the Wisconsin Safe Voting Plan and the laws such as the bribery statute we've discussed are, one, whether the CTCL transfer of $8.8 million to the Wisconsin 5 cities would satisfy anything of value requirement under Wisconsin statute section 12.11.1. Well, $8.8 million is more than $1. Two, whether the CTCL transfer of $8.8 million to the Wisconsin 5 cities would satisfy given to another person requirement under Wisconsin statute 12.11.1M. Three, whether the CTCL transfer of $8.8 million to the Wisconsin 5 cities would satisfy induce electors to go to the polls in a vote requirement under Wisconsin statute section 12.11.1M. Absolutely. That's an absolutely. There's no question that the purpose of the Wisconsin Safe Voting Plan was to induce voters to go to the polls. Election bribery or other exceptions, when you go through the exceptions I mentioned, none of those apply to the CTCL money. Then the big one, the First Amendment exception. Well, the Wisconsin Safe Voting Plan does not fall under protection of the First Amendment because CTCL was transferring private money to the Wisconsin 5 cities. Thus, there's no private speech involved. It's not protected by the First Amendment.
So, ladies and gentlemen, after listening to Mr. Cardall speak, this just keeps getting better and better for qualifying and justifying why we have a resolution out to the Assembly and to the Senate, the legislature as a whole, to decertify / reclaim our 10 electoral ballots. Multiple election laws were broken. We also have now evidence that 12.11 in the statutes, which talks that bribery was also leveraged to perform illegalities that caused an effect to the outcome of the election. So this situation in our state is becoming clearer and clearer every day. And I just know in my heart there's going to be naysayers out there on this Ramthun report and subsequent updates. They just don't want to admit that fraudulent things happened. It's really unfortunate that they don't pay attention to the truth. They're caught up in the conjecture, they're caught up in the conspiracy, and they're caught up in the partisanship of this. I'm not thinking about people when I poke this. I'm into the process, the mechanics, the execution of tasks and elements associated to make sure that every legal vote, every authorized vote, every registered vote that's cast is done so legally and properly so that it doesn't disenfranchise those who are doing it right. We've got to get ahead of the cheating. It's being exposed every day, and it's not just in Wisconsin, ladies and gentlemen. So buckle up, more to come. Thanks for your time.
It truly speaks volumes that our resolution is not only further qualified from that hearing, but our incentive to take action has already put legislation together to address those very issues. Lastly, we want to let you know about a few other initiatives that our office is working on that we know you will be pleased to hear.
Hey everybody, I'm back for segment 3 for number 38. 38 is great. We're going to end on a good note. Third time the charmer yet again. This office, I got to tell you, I'm really blessed to have staff that I've got. Tristan Johannes and Aaron Yeager are incredible resources to have around me. Everybody's working hard to do the right thing of by and for the people. And here is yet again another example of that. This office is working hard to move forward with closure on bills that align to the resolution request. And in this case, with this first bundle I've got to look at here, we started with submitting the bills individually, and it was LRB 5230, which was audits of contested elections, which migrated into a bill that also talked at election nullification if fraud was proven under 12.13 of our statutes. And we actually merged those two bills into Legislative Reference Bureau number 5230/P4. It's basically audits of contested elections and election nullification. These items also tie to the merit and the purpose of asking the question to reclaim our electoral ballots and decertify the election. We also have, ready for co-sponsorship, a message to ask in LRB 5221 to dissolve the WEC. Now, there's a lot of concern out there about the Wisconsin Elections Commission. We have a bill from Joe Sanfilippo that speaks at requesting or demanding or requiring 5 of the 6 commissioners to resign. We also had letters by the speaker, by a senator, I think a rep or two perhaps, asking that the Wisconsin Elections Commission Administrator, Megan Wolf, resign as well. Maybe those are good, maybe they also have merit, but when we're trying to solve a problem, I think any question you ask about a situation like the Wisconsin Election Commission should be allowed. So if you want to just shuffle the deck and change out players and not address the whole situation and the culture and perhaps the learned behavior from within, I don't know if just moving a couple of people around is going to do it. So I'm kind of thinking that the best thing we can do is scrap it and start over and do it right, like they didn't do it in 2014, 2015 when they dissolved the Government Accountability Board and created the Elections Commission and the Ethics Commission separate. And put people into place, and here we are talking about that crap sandwich. So this is to dissolve the WEC. It's going to go out for publication early next week. I look forward to movement and results on that. Now there is one bill, changing subjects here, but a very important subject. The right to try off-label therapies. Ivermectin is something that is out there. People talk about wanting to have available for their coronavirus-related illnesses, and in one particular case with a constituent in Hartford who reached out to my office, they are having trouble being allowed access to that medication that they would like to take. It's their choice. This is a nation of freedom and rights, and to not allow an individual to receive something that they request because they believe their life depends on it, to me shouldn't have a law. It should be common sense. But in this particular case, it looks like we're going to have a law created. So this office is moving forward. This bill has been announced. We have Senate requests for support out, and as soon as we have that, we will post it for co-sponsorship as well. And that's it for now. Thanks, everybody. Look forward to a really good update for you next week. Hopefully we'll have a senator on the resolution bill, and we'll get that thing moving forward. Have a great day and the rest of the week. Bye now.
That said, this concludes our 38th episode of the Ramthun Report. Remember to share this content with as many of your fellow patriots as possible. Together, we can truly restore the principles of a government of, by, and for the people. We will see you next week. God bless you and yours always.